So, welcome to you all to the platform of Shubhra Ranjan IAS. Here we are going to start a new series of lectures pertaining to Odisha society and all the Odisha specific topics one by one. So, today's topic would be the distribution and growth of tribes and tribal population in Odisha. As you may go through the syllabus, of the revised syllabus, I must say, you might see that this is one topic which is mentioned in the syllabus of GS paper 1 of Odisha society. You may understand that these topics are not peculiar to UPSC syllabus, and these are added newly to the OPSC syllabus. So let us go through a brief overview of what could be the scope of these lecture series. I'll tell you how to proceed with this lecture series. Okay. See, the lecture series okay. So this lecture series would be first. What? It will be specific to those topics written in the mains. I repeat, mains syllabus. There would be a 10-minute discussion regarding what we are trying to achieve through these kind of lecture series. Then we will straight away jump to the topic. Okay. So these will be specific to those topics written in the main syllabus, of which the first part we are going to try to finish today would be the tribal portion in the Odisha society. Okay. What would be the second thing? What would be the scope of this series? That means what should be the aims and objective, what we are trying to achieve through this lecture series? The first thing, you should be able to answer the MCQs if it is asked in the OPSC prelims paper, which is due in a couple of months' time, isn't it? Second, you must address the thought-provoking questions in the interview. See, one thing you must remember, that when you are attending the state services, so you are expected to answer those questions which are asked with respect to the state, very specific to the states. You must understand the affairs of the states, the current affairs and the contemporary affairs of the state. And this is precisely why these kind of topics have been introduced in the notification, isn't it? When it is a new addition in your notification, you must very well understand that these kind of questions, these kind of topics can be a part of your interview questions. What should be the third objective? That you should attempt main questions. In these three, all the three things would be catered in this lecture series. Regarding this mains questions, nobody can say that what is being expected to us, but you can expect the themes, what it can be asked, isn't it? So in this respect, we are going to fulfill all the three aims of this lecture series. Okay? So, let us jump straight to our topic, isn't it? So the topic for today is the distribution and growth of tribes and tribal population in Odisha. The first thing what we should talk to ourselves or question ourselves, that what is the relevance and what is the significance of such a topic when we are studying for civil services, and why such a topic has been incorporated in the syllabus when it was not a part of your syllabus earlier. Then I'll brief you about it, a little brief about it. Okay? Okay. I'll give you a little brief about it. See, Odisha, and you are preparing for OPSC, isn't it? When we are talking about Odisha, then the first demographic indicator should be the population size, population, isn't it? You must understand and you must remember this fact that 22.85% of the total population of Odisha are tribals. Can we say this is close to 1/4? If this is close to 1/4 of the population, do you think that such a huge mass should be kept aloof from the studies? And when this 22.85% population is quite vulnerable, how is it vulnerable? In what respect is it vulnerable? Then you can remember the socio-economic factors, isn't it? Take the condition of their health. Take the condition of the health of their women. Take the condition of the education standards. Look at the literacy level. It is close to only 53%, which is way below than the mainstream population, isn't it? What happens to the infant and child mortality? Again, it is way too low. Can't we say they are the vulnerable sections of the society? It can also be attributed because of the geography where they live, isn't it? Mostly they thrive in isolation, mostly. When we talk about tribals, we associate the term isolation, isn't it? Then, if 22.85% population are tribals in our state, and the next step, these are tribals. Let us talk about PVTGs. Have you heard of the term PVTGs? Particularly vulnerable tribal groups. We'll go through it in quite detail. But right now, just remember the term PVTGs, which are 75 in number in whole of India. And you know, 13 of them are in Odisha, which is the largest in number. So these facts you must remember. And when you see that such huge number of vulnerable tribes are in Odisha, can't you expect that there should be a detailed study upon them, because they form a big chunk of our population, isn't it? So this is why the study of tribals is very, very sacrosanct when we talk about the socio-economic conditions and such factors which require social justice. So in this case, the study of tribals becomes very, very important in our study, isn't it? So let us jump to our topic then. Okay, so the topic which is mentioned in your syllabus is distribution and growth of tribes and tribal population in Odisha. Let us break it down. See, when we are trying to prepare for this examination, you must always remember that whatever is provided in your notification, in your syllabus, becomes very, very important, and it should be broken down so as to get a proper grip, because this the examiner will ask nowhere beyond the syllabus. So the first keyword can be distribution, isn't it? The second keyword can be growth. Of whom? The tribes of Odisha and the whole of the tribal population in Odisha, isn't it? So when we break it down, we can say there are three parts to it. Slowly and eventually, we will come across all the parts, okay? So when we talk about the term tribe, there has to be certain definition which can help you identify what a tribe is, okay? See, there are certain keywords associated with the tribe. I'm telling you. See, there are few keywords which you must remember. The first keyword is ethnic group. Okay. The term ethnic group pertains to a group which is united in any of the cultural perspectives. It may be religion, it may be a cultural belief, it may be anything. It may be a religion, it may be a cultural belief, it can be a language. Let us take the example of Bangladesh. They are united on the basis of language, because many of the religious communities live together, but it forms an ethnic group on the basis of language, the Bangla language, isn't it? So the term ethnic group is interchangeably used with the word tribe across the world. Okay? Therefore, the term ethnic group is an umbrella term, isn't it? When you talk about this umbrella term, the term tribe has various aspects, okay? So, when we talk about a tribe, it can have very versatile behaviors, it can have very versatile characteristics, diversified opinions, isn't it? So the tribe of Andaman and Nicobar cannot be the tribe of the Chota Nagpur Plateau in Odisha, isn't it? Because the tribes of Chota Nagpur Plateau are well known for smelting irons, for working as agricultural laborers, working in brick kilns, isn't it? But while the tribes of Andaman and Nicobar, they live in relative geographical isolation, isn't it? Can we expect the same things what their counterparts in the Chota Nagpur Plateau do? Can they do it? I hope you understood the context. So the definition of the term tribe cannot be unanimous. Is that clear to everybody? So in the Indian context, Professor D.N. Majumdar has defined that tribe is a social group. Okay? Understand the keywords given in the definition. Okay. It is a social group, right? That means a group which is bound by social norms, isn't it? With territorial affiliation, that means they own a particular territory, even though they can be semi-nomadic. They can be nomadic, they can be pastorals, they can be horticulturists, they can be anything. But for the time being, they have a territorial affiliation. That means if they are subject to attack by a certain community, they will hold their territory because they think that the territory which they have been attacked, they own it, isn't it? So there has to be a territorial affiliation, isn't it? For example, I'll give you quite a contemporary example. There is a tribe in Brazil called Yanomami tribe, okay? There are huge placer deposits where the tribe, Yanomami tribe, lives in the Amazon basin, near the Amazon forest. So recently what has happened is, the Brazilian government has allowed private party to take up the project of destruction of forest and deforestation, so as to dig through the placer deposits and take out the gold for the country's benefit. So in that case, what has happened is that Yanomami tribe are particularly vulnerable in that respect, and they are very close to extinction, isn't it? So the Yanomami tribe, which are threatened to be displaced, are even expected to get rehabilitated in a certain area, but they are not happy with that, because they think that the Amazon forest, the rainforest, are the territorial affiliation, because they have a sense of nature, man and spirit. There is a particular concept called nature, man and spirit. This is an anthropological concept which is applicable particularly to the tribals, because the tribals believe in a trinity of nature, man and spirit, that all the three elements of this trinity are interdependent on each other. Then in that case, when the nature is taken away from the tribes, do you think the whole ecosystem of this trinity will survive? And this is precisely why the Yanomami tribe has been protesting for quite a long period of time, because they are being threatened to be displaced from their mother nature. Okay. Then let us come to the next term. It is endogamous. What is understood by the term endogamous? That, let us again break it down. Endo means within, and gamous means marriage. Marriage within the community, within the social group. That means the tribals get married to only tribals only, not to the people who are external to the tribal community. Okay, with no specialization. This is very important to understand. They do not have specialization of funds. As in, let us say you have a puja at your home. Okay, then who you call for? A priest. A priest is a religious intermediary. That means a priest is someone who has his function in the society defined, isn't it? But in tribals, they do not have any kind of specialized functions. That means anybody in the tribal group, any member of the tribal group can function whatever they wish to, according to the situation. Okay, they do not have specialization of functions. Then the next thing, what is the political dynamics? That they are ruled by tribal officers. That means they are not ruled by the modern democratic institutions. Okay, they are ruled by tribal officers. How are these tribal officers inducted? They are inducted hereditarily or otherwise. Okay, their status can be ascriptive. Okay, or there can be merit based also. And they will be united in language. This is very important to understand, that an ethnic group can be easily united in language, Because when you speak the common language, what happens is you create a sense of unanimity. You can create a sense of unity, isn't it? So they have a common language or dialect, and they recognize social distance with other tribes or caste. This point is quite debatable in the modern context. This point. Do they really recognize social distance with each other, even in the modern context? There are a few tribes which have completely assimilated. I repeat, they have completely assimilated into the modern fold. While there are a few tribes, they recognize social distance with other tribes and even other castes also. Okay, so this point is debatable. Thereby, we can easily say that no definition of tribe is a completely acceptable one, but with respect to the Indian context, the definition of D. N. Majumdar of tribe is the most expected one. Okay. Okay. Now let us go to the historical background of tribe. Okay. Tribe is a colonial construct in India. What is a colonial construct? It means to say that tribe is a term which has been delineated by the Britishers when we were the colonies of the Britishers at that time. Okay. How is it a colonial construct? See, let us go back to 1871. What happened is the British was slowly getting to consolidate their hold in India. Okay. At that point of time, few resentments and few revolts arose from few pockets of the country. At that time, the tribe, as we call it today, or they are called autochthones also, remember this term, you can use it in your answers also. So they are also called autochthones. When we are talking about autochthones, that means they are the natives and indigenous of that place. Okay, so those people were starting to revolt, and their revolt was very difficult to suppress by the Britishers. Slowly and eventually what happened is the Britishers started enumerating them. Okay, and the process of enumeration started from the first synchronous census conducted by whom? By Lord Ripon in 1881, isn't it? And it continued till 2011 as a form of synchronous census. And when they were enumerated, then that helped the Britishers to identify those indigenous communities so as to take proper steps against them and so as to properly administer them. Okay, so this was the colonial construct of the term. Okay. Okay. Till now, the discussion of the tribes entailed a few characteristics. But is that sufficient? And is that list very exhaustive in nature? No list can be exhaustive in nature because this is humanities and there can be variation in each and every step. So, a social scientist Naik, okay, you have to mention the name of the social scientist in your answers. You have to remember it. Okay, he enlists 7 features as the characteristics of tribes. Okay, see how a tribe has at least functional interdependence within the community. That means a tribe can be said to be a tribe actually when it has to depend upon the other people of the community for all the different functionaries of the society. For example, see, have you heard of this term shaman? Shaman is a tribal religious intermediary. in some cases, he is also a medical practitioner. Okay. So what does a shaman do? The shaman does the same thing what a doctor does to our modern institutions, isn't it? That means when this shaman is absent in some tribal communities, the tribe will fail to thrive. And this is what this point says: a tribe has least functional interdependence, isn't it? The second point, it is techno-economically backward. Okay, how is it techno-economically backward? That means technologically and economically. When we say technologically, that means what can be the technology we are using? See, we are using certain tools for our day-to-day lives. Okay. For example, the use of pen to educate, isn't it? Use of spear to hunt, this is pertaining to education, and this is pertaining to, let's say, hunting. Okay. When we talk about education, this is the modern democratic institution which has taught us to use the pen to educate. But what happened some 3,000 years back, when all of our predecessors were tribe? They used vocal verses, isn't it? So they used the technology of vocal verses, which was quite backward with respect to the use of pen in the modern democratic institution. We are talking with respect to what we are today. Then the use of spear to hunt is also very backward, because it is evident in hunting and gathering societies, isn't it? HNG. Okay. But if somebody wants to hunt in today's life, then what he or she does? He takes up a gun to shoot. Okay. And sometimes he also shoots in the air also, isn't it? Okay, let us come to the third point. It is geographically isolated. I've already talked about this point. It is geographically isolated. Can it be geographically isolated all the time? Can it be a certainly one characteristics out of the 7 to be called as a tribe? No. Understood? What has to be the fourth one? Its members speak a common unwritten language. It is again it is debatable, the unwritten language, because you know the President of India is from your state, and she hails from which community? She hails from Santhal community, isn't it? So Santhal community has a script or not? Yes, it does have a script, and that is why it is included in the 8th schedule of your constitution, isn't it? Santhali is mentioned in the 8th schedule of the constitution out of those 22 languages. So the point unwritten language is again debatable, and it is actually contradicted by today's term, isn't it? Then it is a political unit under a common authority. That means, what is a common authority? Can we say it is talking about centralization? Isn't it? It is talking about centralization. But can we say that certain tribes in the past also, when we talk about the Janapadas, if you remember ancient history, there were few Janapadas who were republics, and such republics had decentralized political structure, isn't it? So when it was the tribes in the ancient were not under a centralized authority in the ancient past, then there can be so much difference and ambiguity in this point, isn't it? Then what is the sixth one? Its members practice animistic faith. Animistic. Okay. Animism is a kind of religion which believes in soul. Okay. You can say you believe in Hinduism, somebody believes in Islam, somebody believes in Christianity, somebody believes in Judaism. But when these religions were of the mainstream structure, the tribals, a few tribals even today, they have their faith in animism. Animism is the belief in soul, belief in cultural practices. Okay. Then the seventh one, it regulated itself by customary laws. What is customary laws? Customary laws are such laws by which the tribals are governed, which has its backing in their own customary beliefs. For example, the sixth schedule of your constitution, those 4 states are still governed by customary laws, isn't it? The laws of the constituents cannot be put upon them, isn't it? And they believe still in customary laws, because see, in many tribes there is a custom to elope. There is a custom of marriage by elopement, isn't it? So in your democratic institution, when somebody elopes, then you can register a case in the police station, isn't it? But in their life, what happens? They are governed by customary laws, and when they are governed by customary laws, these kind of activities like elopement, marriage by elopement, and all, these are a part of their life, and this is the law how they are governed, isn't it? So the modern constitution, the constitutional laws are not binding upon them, and they are governed by the customary laws, isn't it? So these are certain characteristics of tribe listed by Naik, and again this is not exhaustive, and all of these points will have contradiction in some point of time. Okay, it is only for the purpose of your understanding and your examination. Okay, let's say in the examination you are being asked to write certain features of tribes, then you can list all these points along with the social scientist name. Okay, the next thing. Okay, till now we talked about tribes. Now we will be talking about scheduled tribes. What is a scheduled tribe? Scheduled. Remember I told you about enumeration? Enumeration was done by census, isn't it? So it is a well understood fact to all of you that the tribals in our society are one of the most vulnerable sections of our society, isn't it? So what a state must strive to do to a vulnerable society for its upliftment? It must provide social justice, isn't it? In the form of policies, in the form of reforms, in the form of schemes, in the form of various initiatives or government interventions, isn't it? That means the vulnerable section of the society, what we are talking about, that is the tribes, they again have to be enlisted or being categorized into the severity of vulnerability, isn't it? Which tribe is much more severe, or the vulnerability of which tribe is much more severe? That is why there is a certain mechanism of enlisting or scheduling, isn't it? That is why the Constitution of India has the provision of scheduling tribes, so that you can identify such tribes which need attention, which need care, which needs social justice to be catered to, isn't it? such tribes which are enlisted by the government are called scheduled tribes. Okay. Right now its number is around 705, if I am not wrong. At the time of the Constitution of India, the adoption of Constitution of India, its number was close to 220, something like that, 225 or 20. But right now it has rose to 705. So what was the whole purpose of creating scheduled tribes? See, in this lecture series, we will not be confining ourselves to the topic itself, but we will be trying to link other aspects of other GS papers also. Right now, we are talking about polity and governance when we are talking about the vulnerable section of the society, that is scheduled tribes, isn't it? So we will not confine ourselves to a certain topic, because the questions what we are expected to answer would not be confined to answering in a certain dimension. You must keep your eyes and ears open so that you can provide certain dimensions which is a true attribute of a policy maker, and this is what will keep you in the selection list. Okay. So coming back to this, so when the number was 220 around, let's say 250 or 225, whatever the number is, and right now it has rose close to 700. That means the number of scheduled tribes have increased by 3 folds, isn't it? When the number of scheduled tribes have increased by 3 folds, that means more and more number of people by the advent of time are getting much more vulnerable. Does that not mean that the government policies for the past 75 years are a complete failure? If it was a success, then the process of descheduling has had to be taken place rather than scheduling more and more tribes, isn't it? No, that's not the case. See, what happens is, a tribe can be a scheduled tribe by presidential order. Presidential order. It will be a public order, okay? With the recommendation of National Commission of SC and ST as well as the governor of the state, okay? What happens is, due to the politics of the state, certain politicians try to incorporate certain tribes into scheduled tribes list so as to provide them the benefits of reservation and other privileges and concessions provided by the government as well as the Constitution of India. So it is a completely vote bank politics. It should not be understood that scheduling more and more people into the scheduled tribe list is a failure of the government, but it is a matter of vote bank politics. Okay. So the government of India has also taken care of it, and to look into the process of descheduling, it has also constituted a committee whose report is due. Okay. So you must wait and watch what will happen to it. Okay. We have just digressed from the discussion. Again, we'll come back to it. Okay. See. Although the president can notify a tribe to be a scheduled tribe by a public order, public notification, public order, okay? But there has to be certain characteristics of a tribe which should be a bare minimum so that they can be inducted to the scheduled tribe list, okay? And that recommendation was provided by Lokur Committee. Lokur Committee. Please remember the term Lokur Committee in 1965, if I am not wrong. Yes, it's 1965. So the recommendations of Lokur Committee in 1965 provides for certain criteria which should be taken care of, which should, not must, which should be taken care of when a certain tribe is due for being scheduled as a scheduled tribe. Okay, the first among them is indication of primitive traits, the second is distinctive culture, third is geographical isolation, the fourth is shyness of contact with the community, and fifth one is backwardness. These 5 points are suggested by the Lokur Committee so that a tribe can be inducted into scheduled tribe, and such criteria should be followed. Please look into each and every criteria. No criteria you will find no criteria objective. All the criteria are subjective. Why it has been kept subjective? Please understand these concepts of being objective and subjective. If these kind of criteria would be kept objective, then what would happen? Then a tribe to be scheduled as a scheduled tribe, to be converted into scheduled tribe, that criteria has to be 100% to be sufficed, isn't it? But when it is kept subjective, it is upon the discretion of the president, isn't it? So so as to keep, in order to keep the scope very broad for the President of India to notify a tribe to be a scheduled tribe, these certain criteria have been kept very subjective in nature. So the next time you see certain subjective criteria, subjective nature of policies, then you must understand that the scope, the horizon of such statement has been kept very broad so as to keep the interpretations very open. Okay? The one thing which you must understand, that the Constitution does not state how a community can be identified as a tribe. That is why it was Lokur Committee which gave such criteria to be identified as a scheduled tribe. Okay. The next thing is classification of scheduled tribe. Okay. See, there are various classifications of scheduled tribe, and we will keep our discussions confined to Odisha part only. The first kind of classification, as far as the state of Odisha is concerned, is the linguistic classification. Okay. See, how many tribes are there in Odisha? How many different tribes are there in Odisha? You must remember there are 62 different tribes in Odisha. What is the rank? Odisha has the first rank. That means Odisha has the most number of different tribal communities found anywhere, found in any state of India. So with such distinctiveness, can we expect them to be very diversified, very distinct, isn't it? So there needs to be a classification, a subject of classification also. So the first subject of classification is the linguistic classification. See, the linguistic classification is a huge classification. See, the language or dialect, what we speak or what we listen to, becomes very much a part of our life. The people who speak the common language, we create a sense of affinity towards him or her, isn't it? Don't you expect the same human tendency or psychological tendency with the tribals also, isn't it? So you must understand there are many languages in the tribal culture which are prevalent and which are due to vulnerable, and right now a few tribal languages have also been extinct. Okay, thereby it is very important to classify them on linguistic basis so that the language can also be protected, isn't it? So as far as the tribes of Odisha are concerned, there are three tribes, okay? Three kind of categories. The first category is Indo-Aryan speakers, okay? Indo-Aryan speakers, okay. The language what we speak in Odisha is Odia. Do you know Odia is an Indo-Aryan language? It is not a Dravidian language. It is an Indo-Aryan language, please remember. The second is Dravidian language, third is Austric speakers, Austric language, okay? See, Austric languages, how many tribes speak the Austric language? They are 26, okay? How many speak Dravidian languages? There are 14. How many speak the Indo-Aryan language? There are 22 in number. Can you add them all? When you add them all, you will be getting 62. Isn't it the same as the total number of different tribal communities? Thereby you can see there are so many different kind of languages, and they are classified into three categories. Like there are different Austric speakers, like the Munda language is an Austric language, okay? Odia language, yes, Odia language is again an Indo-Aryan language. Then what we can say, the tribal languages are characterized are non-literary, characteristically non-literary. Is it true? Again, it is very subjective. We can say that the most of the languages, tribal languages and dialects are non-literary. But again, I will take the example of, let's say, Tulu. Tulu is a tribal language of Karnataka, isn't it? But it finds its place in the 8th schedule, and definitely it must have a script, isn't it? That means most often than not, they are characterized by non-literary, but there are literary sources also. However, in the past few decades, scripts have been devised in Ho, Kui, Santali, Sora languages. Please remember this language Kui. It is very, very important for your examination point of view, Kui. This is one language which is recommended by the Odisha state government to be included in the 8th schedule. Okay? And Kui is spoken by which community, which tribal community? It is spoken by Kondh or Kondhas, what we say in Odisha. Okay? Please remember it. And naturally, the term Santali becomes very important because the incumbent president of India is from the Santali community. Okay? Let us look at the second type of classification. The second classification is on the level of development. Development means development in terms of what? In terms of modernization, isn't it? So the first classification would be PVTGs, isn't it? There are four criteria. There are four criteria by which we can address a certain tribe to be PVTGs or not. Okay. So in Odisha, I have already said how many PVTGs are there. You can count them all. It will be 13, and it is the largest number again. Out of how many? 75 in India. Odisha has 13. Okay. So these snippets and facts should be on your fingertips. Second, the tribes in transition. What is the tribes in transition? How do you understand what are the tribes which are in transition? Transition with respect to the level of development. That means these tribes are in transition to the cause of development. That means they are in transition to be joined in mainstream. Is that understood? Let's say Santal. Santal cannot be said that it is a tribe which lives in hinterland and it is in complete geographical isolation, isn't it? Second is Kharia, then Oraon, Kisan. These all tribes are tribes in transition. Please remember a few examples of all of them, okay? The third is assimilated tribe. Assimilated tribe as in which are completely integrated in some sense due to, remember this term, acculturation. Acculturation. What is acculturation? Learning from other cultures is called acculturation. Please remember this term. You can use it as a keyword in your main answers. When you use such kind of terms, you can expect some extra points, extra marks in your examination. Okay, so please remember to use this kind of terms. It would be of great help when you write the answers related to tribe. Okay, so assimilation into the modern fold is called assimilated tribe. Gond is one such community, isn't it? In India, Gond, whatever typical tribe comes across our discussion, I'll be explaining about them. See, Gond is the second largest tribal community in India. That means the total, when you take the total population of the tribal communities, Gonds have the second largest of them in all over India. Okay. Then the third is in the level of integration. Most of the tribes, when they are under the influence of certain religion, then the most predominant among them would be Hindu religion, isn't it? Hinduism. So it talks about that in the view of Hinduization, that means incorporation into the fold of Hinduism, external influence, isn't it? What kind of external influence? That means influence of Christianity can be an external influence. Then cultural contact, that means one example of cultural contact may be the influence of caste Hindus. Let's say in the wake of industrialization, what has happened is, due to many such industries in those tribal belts, certain tribals, what they did to earn a livelihood, they used to work there as industrial non-skilled workers. Then this can be an example of cultural contact. Okay. Then neighborhood is one such factor again. Then one can assess the level of integration of tribals as follows. See, with the level of assimilation of Hinduization and other religions, we can say there can be distinct tribal communities. There can be rural tribals. These days there are urban tribals also. We'll come across that also again. I'll tell you. There are semi-acculturated tribals. I told you what is acculturation. That not completely acculturated. And these are acculturated tribals. You can quote, for example, Gond, Bhil. These are totally assimilated because Bhils and Gonds are completely into the Hindu fold. Okay. So this is again one such standard of classification. Then this is the most accepted classification parameter, that the economical classification. Many of the tribes are still in hunting, gathering and foraging stage. What is collecting? Collecting of forest produce. Forest produce. What forest produce? Do you know the term? Do you know the tree called sal? Isn't it? This tree is very much a part of Odisa's ecosystem, very predominantly available. A good number of tribals in Odisha, they collect the leaves of sal and they stitch them together to make sal plates, use and throw plates, and sell it in the local market. So this can be done only by collection of the kendu fruit also. There are many tribes which are hunting and gathering even today, isn't it? Then there are certain tribes which are cattle herders. That means most of their activities would be kind of animal rearing. But these days what has happened is animal rearing is not the only source of incomes for them. The people who are agriculturalists, they obtain their secondary income from animal rearing. It is applicable to all the societies, not only the tribals. So finding cattle herder type is quite difficult in today's context. Okay. Then there can be simple artisan type. What is an artisan? Artisan is somebody who reflects his creativity in some kind of art and craft, isn't it? Then there can be hill and shifting cultivation type. Shifting cultivation, what is it called in your state? It is called Oman. It is called Bringa. It is called Podu, isn't it? Commonly called slash and burn technique. There are certain tribes who practice shifting cultivation still today. There are certain tribes who have settled agricultural type. One such tribe is called Lodha. Lodha tribe is very important for your examination. Why? Because it is one of those tribes which are settled agricultural type. Secondly, it is one of those 13 PVTGs. Thirdly, very, very important, I'll change the color of the pen. See, these tribes are ex-criminal tribes. Kindly make a note of it, please do that. Lodha is one such tribe in Odisha which were branded as a criminal tribe by the Britishers when they were our colonial masters, using an act called Habitual Offenders Act. I guess it was in 1952 or whatever the time period might be. These tribes were branded as criminal tribes. But after the independence and the constitution of our modern republican government, what has happened that these tribes were denotified. Please make a note of these things, please. These tribes were denotified. That means they are no more criminal tribes. Now I'll make you understand a certain concept. See, you may denotify them. Once it was notified as a criminal tribe back in the ages of British, one fine day, overnight, what the policymakers did was to denotify them as criminal tribes, that they were no longer criminal tribes. But does the social change come overnight? You made a political change overnight. Okay, understood. It was a revolutionary change. But the same revolution, does that reflect in the social sphere, the social realm? No. That means the law is an enforcement mechanism. The law can only enforce, but it cannot bring about a change overnight. Society cannot be changed through a revolution. It can only be an evolution. Okay? The change has to be gradual. Why I am saying it as, these branded criminal tribes back in the day, although some of them were not criminals also, they were also branded in such terms. Even though they were denotified, they were subject to social ostracization. Whosoever finds them as denotified tribe, let us say a member from the Lodha tribe is persecuted for certain crime. Okay. A certain kind of suspicion is already subject upon these tribes that these tribes were once upon a time a criminal tribe, and due to those kind of activities they would be doing the same offense again. So these kind of uh, trials, media trials also, public trials also defame such tribes which are on the same footing as that of other tribes. Okay. So you must understand that political awakening does not bring about social awakening immediately. It will take time. Okay. Okay. Next. The last is industrial worker type. Many a time I have stressed upon this fact that industrial urban worker type is one such type, like Munda tribes. Oh, these tribes are very famous, are very popular industrial workers in the steel plants, in the coal minings, in the quarries of Chota Nagpur Plateau. So this is one kind of economic classification. Okay, let us go back to the, then if you remember the title of what our discussion started from, then it was distribution of certain scheduled tribes. Okay. So when we are talking about distribution, what we can do in Odisha's context, that we can geographically divide them. So when you divide the state of Odisha, okay, when you divide the state of Odisha, then the northern plateau in the part of Odisha, what happens is there are more quite close to 25% of the tribal communities live in the northern plateau. What are those predominant tribal groups? Like Santal, the Munda, the Bhuiya, the Oram, the Gond. These kind of predominant tribal groups are found in the northern plateau. You have to mug up these facts. If a question comes in the mains examination, what you can do? You have to do it. Then the second one is Eastern Ghat region. You know, the Eastern Ghat region is very, very rich in khondalite rocks. They are very, very mineral rich, and they are very, very lush green also. That means the ecosystem is vegetation rich, isn't it? So the tribes like Kond, Saura, Paraja, Koya, Gond, Gadaba, these tribes remain in the lap of the nature. Let us talk something about this tribe Kond. Kond is synonymous to Kandha of Odisha. Okay. As far as the population of tribals in Odisha is concerned, the Kond constitutes the highest. It ranks first among the tribal population of Odisha. It has the most number of tribal population of Odisha. Okay. And it is predominantly found in the Eastern Ghat region. And you may say it is close to 30%. The Eastern Ghat region hosts more than 29% of the tribal population in the state. Okay. The third one is central tableland area. What is a tableland? It is a table-like structure, land which is drained by many rivers. You must know that Odisha is a land of 6 rivers, blessed with 6 great rivers, isn't it? So these tablelands are drained by almost all of those hexadeltaic, all those rivers, those 6 rivers, which ultimately forms the hexadeltaic nature, isn't it? So what are those predominant tribal communities? Gond, Kisan, Desia, Kon, Sawar. Okay. And this coastal tract. Okay. In the coastal part of India also, we can find, in the state of Odisha also, we can find tribals, but these tribals are mixed tribal communities. Why these are called mixed tribal communities? Because the tribals from this area, and this area, certain tribals from these areas, they migrate to this area because of development, so has to earn their livelihood. That is why this area does not have any of the autochthones or indigenous communities of tribals, but these tribals have migrated, have emigrated from the northern plateau part, the eastern Ghat, the central tableland, as well as from the neighboring states like Andhra Pradesh. One such tribe is, I must say, is Koya. Koya is predominantly found in Andhra. Okay. Chenchus. Such tribes have migrated to the coastal tract because of its booming industrial capacities, the economic facilities available. Okay. One more thing I must tell you now. See, tribals India, it is almost 8.6% of the total population. But in Odisha, it constitutes 22.85% of the population. Can you look at the stark difference? Only 8.6% of the population in whole of India constitute the tribals, while close to 1/4 of the population of our state are tribals. So you must understand how much importance it should be given. That is why it is very, very important to study them so much holistically and in detail. Okay. Now let us look at some major tribes of Odisha, then we'll wrap it up for the next session. Okay. So this is one tribe called Bhuiya tribe. Okay. So this Bhuiya tribe, its major location, I'll again tell you one fact, that if you are asked that which district has the most number of tribal population in our state, it is the Mayurbhanj district. Okay. Please remember first. And which district has the least number of tribal population? That means what should be the rank? It should be how many districts? 30th, isn't it? It is Puri. Puri has the least number of tribals. Okay. See, in this lecture, the scope of our discussion should be confined to general studies only. We can go very deep into the subject, very deep into the understanding of the subject, like the socio-economical conditions, like the various religious institutions, various social institutions like kinship, marriage, family, the structure of marriage, the ways of acquiring a mate, isn't it? We can all discuss about them, but it is beyond the scope of our discussion, because this is not the only topic you are preparing for your examination. Okay. So let us keep it confined in depth, but in breadth we are going to discuss. Okay. The GS, what the topics in the GS has to be covered in breadth, not in very much depth. But when you talk about optional, you have to cover them in depth along with the breadth. Okay. So because see, in optional, what happens is you have to cater to the understanding of the PG level. Okay. But in GS, it is expected that you have an adequate knowledge up to the 12th standard. But the questions in these days, they are asked much more beyond 12th standard, but we will keep it confined more or less to graduate level only. Okay. So whatever tribe you come across, please keep a check on a few dimensions. First thing is, what is the major location? Second, what is the kind of language they are speaking? What is the major occupational practices? What are the major festivals and rituals? Apart from them, what you can do is, if you look at other social dimensions, the first thing you can look up to is type of marriage. Second, marriage payments, that is either dowry or bride price. Third is ways of acquiring mates. Because certain tribes, they have a customary law of eloping. Certain tribes, they have a custom of providing service. The groom provides the service to the prospective bride. Thereafter, when the prospective groom's service is well accepted by the bride's family, then the marriage is possible. So this is one more method of acquiring a mate. Okay. The third thing is religion. What kind of religion do they follow? Fifth is burial practices, because many such tribes have still megalithic tradition. You will see many tribes which have erected menhirs, dolmens. You have to associate art and culture also along with the study of society. You cannot leave any subject behind. So when you keep a check on all such dimensions, then only your study will be comprehensive. But for the time being, I would rather ask you to keep it confined to location, language, occupation and festivals. Okay. We will cover some typical characteristics of certain tribes in MCQs also. So don't have to worry about that. See. Okay, when you talk about this Bhuiya tribe, their major location is what? Keonjhar, Sundargarh, Jharsuguda, Mayurbhanj, Sambalpur and Angul. Can we say that this forms, when we talk about the geographical distribution, doesn't it form the northern plateau? Northern plateau? Or the central tableland also? A part of them? So this way you can interlink. Keep a map with you also. Okay. The language. What is the language they primarily speak? They are Odia, and Odia is a Indo-Aryan language. What were the three languages, type of languages which are spoken in the tribals of Odisha? The Indo-Aryan language, the Dravidian language, and the third was Austric language. What was the example of Austric language? Munda was an example, isn't it? What are the major occupations? Shifting and settled cultivation, forest collection, wage earning. See, apply your common sense. When a tribe can afford shifting agriculture? When there is abundance of forest. If there is not an abundance of forest, can somebody afford shifting cultivation? It should be in your common sense. So if there is an abundance of forest, then you must primarily visualize in your mind that what are such districts in our state which have such abundance of forest, where shifting cultivation can be a social practice. Understood? Likewise, forest collection also. What are the major festivals? You can go ahead. This is one major festival, Nuakhai, okay, which is very much important, and it attracts an international eye on it. The second one is Bondo Boraja. It is actually Bondo. It is primarily found in Malkangiri. What kind of languages do they speak? They speak the Austro-Asiatic language, that is the Austric language. Their men are called Remos, you know, Remo. This is one typical characteristics. Their occupation and major festivals you can see. Their women are typically known for their attire. You can see these earrings. They also wear some kind of neck beads. This is one typical characteristic. The next one is Dongriya Kond. What is so typical about Dongriya Kond? See, they are the autochthones of the lofty Niyamgiri hills. Niyamgiri hills, in the ranges of Niyamgiri hills, they are the indigenous people. They are not only the tribals who live there, but they have their roots there also. That is why they are called autochthones. Anna. Then they speak what kind of language? Kuvi, a dialect. It is similar to Kui language also. Okay. One more thing is very important. They have girls dormitory called Dashahada or Hadshala. Okay. There are certain dormitories, the concept of dormitories in tribals. Okay. And this tribe has a girls dormitory called Dashada. Okay. This again, the Gond tribe, as you can remember, this forms the second largest tribal population of India. Okay. And they are primarily found in Kalahandi, Bolangir and Nuapada district. What kind of language do they speak? They speak the Gondi language. And Gondi language is of what category? It is a Dravidian language. And most of the tribals who have partially or totally acculturated or assimilated into the modern fold, they are mostly bilingual or even trilingual also. Even in some case we have seen that it can be multilingual also. That means they speak their own tribal language. Apart from them, they speak Odia. Some of them speak Hindi also. So, Gond is such tribe which are not only bilingual, but I must say they are multilingual because Gonds also speak Hindi. Okay. So, not only the Gondi language and the Odia language, they also speak Hindi. What are their major cultivation? They have a very diversified occupation and economical practices. It ranges from being an agricultural laborer to an industrial laborer to being a settled cultivator. Okay. What are the major festivals and rituals? They celebrate Chaith Parv. Most of the tribals, they are indulged in such kind of rituals and festivals which are largely associated with their occupation, you know. You must see in your state also, like the Raja festival. It is a tribal festival, isn't it? But right now, even though you are not tribals, you are of the mainstream society, you have emulated or imitated from them, isn't it? When you imitate it from them, then the culture has flown from a little tradition to a greater tradition, isn't it? So there is a certain anthropological concept called little and the great tradition. So this concept is called universalization, that is the flow of culture from little to greater tradition. It is becoming the parochial culture has become an universal culture because you are accepting it, because you are standing on a universal ground, and they are parochials, isn't it? The whole process can be called universalization. But okay, just remember the terms, universalization. The other tribe is called Khond. I have already spoken about it. They primarily live in Raigada, Kandhamar and Koraput district. The language spoken by them is Kui or Kubi, these kind of languages. These are the Kubis are again certain other dialect. What are the major occupation? So it is beyond contemplation. They have very much diversified, and because this tribe forms the majority of population, the highest population of tribes in Odisha, then the occupation can be very much varied. Okay, and they also migrate to the coastal places to work in construction with brick kilns, quarries and all, isn't it? I have already spoken about Lodha tribe. Okay, see, it is known as the ex-criminal tribe, I have already said. And one more thing you must understand, that they trace their descent from the famous Savras. Savras, a clan. Savras were a clan, okay? and they trace the descent from Savaras. They speak a mixture of many languages like Mundari and Bengali because they live on the fringes of both the states. Okay. They have clan deities called Chandi and Sitana. Okay. So these kind of religious practices they follow. You must remember a few points, typical points about a certain tribe. Okay. Then again, we have talked about Mundas also. We talked about Santal also. See, Santal, the language is Santali, that means Mundari. And Mundari is a ostrich language. You must remember this thing. There can be a question in your prelims also. Now, the next topic, what we'll be dealing with is PVTGs. Okay. The first thing what we'll be dealing is the criteria of PVTG, the distinguishing feature. That means how do we distinguish a certain tribe to be PVTG separate from a particular tribe. Then third thing is distribution of PVTGs and certainly in Odisha we will see, because we are studying first the civil services of Odisha. The fourth thing is demographic indicators. What are the few demographic indicators? Can you say? One thing is population. One thing is total fertility rate, isn't it? One thing is infant mortality rate. Okay. What can be the other socio-economic factors? Please. Literacy rate. Anything else? Prevalence of diseases, etc. Okay. What are the socio-economic aspects? We'll deal with it. And why exactly PVTGs? They are called PVTGs. How they have been derived from PTGs? This is called primitive tribal group, and there was the name eventually changed into PVTG. Who was that? Who was the person who recommended to create this certain classification? It was Dube Commission. Please remember, Dube Commission. You have to remember all these names. I think it is in 1973 that he recommended to form PTGs, and the name of PTG changed to PVTG. Please remember all these things. You have to remember the committees. One major committee is called Kaka Committee. It is written as XA, but it is spelled as Kaka. Kaka Committee. We will see its recommendation from time to time in the upcoming lecture. So these are the things we are going to cater in PVTGs. Okay. So we have come to the close to the part 1. Here we have kept our discussion pertaining to the society aspects of the tribe. In the second part, we will be dealing with somewhat of the social justice that is catered in GS paper 2 of your paper, isn't it? Today I made you have a feel of how the lectures would flow and what all can be catered, that you can be benefited in prelims, mains and interview at all the stages of your preparation regarding the Odisha specific topics, where a lot of comprehensive material is not available in the market. So to keep things at your fingertips, we are trying to make such lecture series, of which the first part of the tribes has been covered, and let us see what will be the scope of discussion in the second part. See, the second part of the lecture will include what? The demographic profile of Odisha and its comparison with other states. When you don't go for comparison, when you don't compare your study with a particular the parameter with the other state, you cannot understand the level of difficulties our tribes are facing, isn't it? So this is one comparison you will see. Then we will see the major problems of our tribals. If we can see that problems are tribals, we can also see the recommendations of solutions by certain committees, by certain bodies. We'll see all together. We'll take theme wise. Like we'll take health. When we take health, we'll see what is the problem. Then what is the suggestion? We again break it down to infant health and women health. When we take the women health, we'll see what is the observation and what can be the possible solution and what can be recommendation. So we will break it up theme wise. You can use these kind of concept in other questions also. The third thing is constitutional provisions. The constitution, what has the constitution provided for the scheduled tribes? Okay, and what are the other safeguards? We'll see, look into it. The third thing is government interventions, schemes and initiatives. Please go to your syllabus, GS paper 2 social justice, you'll find this term, government interventions. So government interventions is a broad term, is an umbrella term, and this umbrella term will be applied to the tribals in this lecture series, in this part of the lecture. In other vulnerable section, let's say we'll take up women, we'll take differently abled person, we'll be taking senior citizens. Then we will again see what are the government interventions. Understood? Third things, what are the major committee recommendations? I will not put up all the recommendations of a particular committee in one place, but I'll put them on the basis of various themes like education, health, literacy, okay, nutrition, health. ये सारे चीजों को we'll be keeping separately. The third thing is then we'll look at certain stats. We will be taking up abundance of facts. Stats galore means abundance of facts. Okay, so we'll take up those facts which are very pertinent to the examination, which can be expected to be asked in the examination. If not in the examination, you can use them in mains also. Okay. Then we'll be talking about the few terminologies or keywords for mains. I'll tell you a few terminologies. You can prepare at your own will also, but in the next lecture I'll be addressing those topics. The first thing is, what is denotified tribes? I've already talked about it. We'll see in detail. Okay. The second thing is Panchsheel. What is tribal Panchsheel? It was given by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the incumbent prime minister of back in the day. The third thing is, what is pseudo tribalism? This is one keyword what you can use in mains to get extra points. Okay. Associated term is called sham tribals. Sham tribals is one associated term. Okay. Then finally we'll take up some practice MCQ questions and some mains question, how to address them. Okay. So I'll take your leave for today, and kindly prepare something for the next lecture also, so that you can have a hold and a very good grip of what is happening in the class. Okay. Thank you and have a nice day. Thank you.